Hi, everybody. Well, I was trying to decide, what do we Zoom on? Do we Zoom science or do we Zoom literature? And I decided that I loved hearing your voices so much reading yesterday that I wanted to hear those little voices again. So I figured I would videotape science today, and we'll Zoom tomorrow with The Secret Garden. Well, today. But I did want to talk to you a little bit. I have comprehension check sheets that are going to go with each one of these lessons. And I actually made them myself last year. So, let me pick it up. This is what it's going to look like. And your mom and dad may have printed this for you already. This is for the unit that we did before break, the lesson 1 about what is weather. So what you're going to see on here, let me pull this out of the binder. What you're going to see on here is just, like I even wrote on there for the directions, it says big ideas. So this is the main focus of the entire lesson. Okay, so one of the main things, and I remember we talked about this in class, what is the atmosphere? So notice though, boys and girls, I even want you to put a page number. Okay, I want you to find this information in the book. So I don't want to know the Susie Sunshine version of what atmosphere is. I would like to know what the book taught you about what atmosphere is. So that's why I want you to find atmosphere. You know it's going to be a green word, okay? I picked out, remember the green words are the important words. There's a reason they're green, right? So that's the one I picked out. The next one you will not be surprised to find is the next green word, weather. Okay, so I would like you to go to page 135, okay? For this question, what is atmosphere? I'd like you to write in page 135, and I'd like you to write in, the atmosphere is the blanket of air that surrounds Earth. That's what you should write, okay? So I want you to see it, I want you to read it, I want you to write it. Okay, so we're going to use all of those different modes of the brain to try and remember what atmosphere is. Okay, I would suggest that you keep these papers, because I've told mom and dad that everything else could be recycled once it's posted to your website. I suggest you keep these. Maybe you can, in the end, staple them together. This is going to be a fantastic study guide by the end of the unit to work on, the test. Okay? So you're going to get one of these for each one. I will tell you, I combined the lesson 1 and lesson 2 because I didn't have this available. It was at school. I didn't have this available when I had you read this before break. This one's pretty short. The one for the lesson we're going to read today is a little bit longer. So, just sometime, you don't have to do both today necessarily, but I wouldn't put them off too far because you're going to have one of these every time we do a lesson. Okay? But it may end up being kind of a lot of science for one day. You'll decide. This one's really easy. It's the next one for today's lesson that's a little bit harder. And actually, I think I'm going to pull that out because I think I'm going to talk about it as we read. So hang on one second. Okay, so today we're going to read lesson 2, and you're going to need your science book. It is on page 144. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. I'm going to try and read it while I show it. Number 1, what heats the Earth's surface? Page number. Number 2, what tool would you use to measure temperature? Page number. Number 3, the Celsius and Fahrenheit scales both measure blank. Number 4, temperatures at night are blank than temperatures during the day. Think about that. We haven't even read it yet, and I bet you can figure out the answer. Temperatures at night are blank than temperatures during the day. And then the next word is because blank, 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 blank. So two things going on there. First one's a fact. The temperatures at night are blank to temperatures during the day. And then, why is that? So we're going to learn about that. Page number. Put in your page numbers. That way you're going to know exactly where to go when it comes time to study for the test. Okay, now we've got this little data table, and you're going to use that information to answer the questions. Use the data and your knowledge of science to answer these questions. All right, number 4, which season has the hottest average temperature? Boys and girls, an average temperature means that if you took the temperature for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, okay? And even though it's a little warmer on one day and a little bit colder on the other and a little bit warmer and a little bit colder, an average means you took all 5, okay? And you figured out what was almost like the most common, you know? If it was 40 degrees, 40 degrees, 80 degrees, 42 degrees, and 41 degrees, okay? The average temperature you could either say was about 40 because it was only one day that it was way higher, or you could go somewhere in between and say, well, it was an average of maybe 60, okay? Average means you're using all of the information, because what about that one day that went all the way up to 80? Like, that does sometimes happen in Michigan, where we get some crazy great day or some crazy freezing day, okay? So we don't always, sometimes we kind of want to take the really, really highs and the really, really lows out, and we kind of want to know what's the normal that's in the middle, okay? So the average temperature, and it says right here, average temperature, in the winter is 33. So it might be a little warmer, it might be a little bit colder, but it's about 33. In the spring, it's 62. In the summer, it's 79. And in the autumn, it's 55. So let's think about summer at our house, okay? So 79, that's almost 80 degrees, okay? That's a pretty decent average for the summer around our house, isn't it? Okay, yes, sometimes it might be a really cold night and it might be 50, and sometimes it's really hot and it's like 100 degrees. But when you say about 80 degrees is normal or average for Michigan in the summer, okay, so this is very much like our weather. Which season has the hottest average temperatures? That's why it says use your knowledge of science, because you could answer that question right now. Think of Michigan. Which season has the hottest average temperatures? Not a hard question, right? All right, now number 6 is a little trickier. So, boys and girls, when something is hard, should you go running to mom and dad and say, oh, this is hard, so I won't be doing this? Is that what you should say? Okay. If it's hard, then read it again. If it's hard, then think about it more. If it's hard, then you need to think hard. So, if this is a tricky one, I guess you better read it twice. Not go running for help. Think hard. The average winter temperature of a nearby city called Kazoo Town is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. How did the sun in those two cities, how did the sun heat the two cities differently? Well, let's see, different than what? Well, I guess different than the information in here, because the average of this town in the winter is 33 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature in this town is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun must be doing something a little bit different in one place than another, kind of like how it's different in Michigan in the winter than it is in Florida, right? Something is going on different there, because it's nice and warm in Florida and it's cold in Michigan. What is happening different in those two places? That's what this question is. Okay? All right, let's read it. Okay, page 144. How is temperature measured? Boys and girls, how is temperature measured? What do you use? Do you use a clock? Do you use a scale? Do you use a measuring cup? How is weather measured? Let's look at our science vocabulary on 144. We have the word thermometer and we have the word weather station. Notice how they're green on that page. When you see them in green in the book, it's a pretty good sign. First of all, that it's important. Second of all, might be referenced on here somewhere. Okay. Why are some places on Earth very cold and others are very warm? First of all, we could answer that question immediately because we have talked about things like the equator before, haven't we? And we know that the closer we get to the equator, what? The warmer it is, right? And the further away from the equator we get, the colder it is, right? The sun is the source of almost all the heat on the Earth's surface, but the sun heats different places in different amounts. The sun heats different places in different amounts. People have tools to find out how warm it is at different times and different places on Earth. Page 145, the sun heats the Earth's surface. Have you noticed on a warm day that it feels cooler in the shade? What causes air temperature to change? Recall that temperature is how warm or cold something is. What is temperature? That's right. Temperature is how warm or cold something is. Okay, so what's the temperature of my coffee? Unfortunately, right now, it's not quite as warm as I would like it to be, which you're pretty used to. Temperature is how warm or cold something is. You can measure temperature of water, coffee, air, and other materials. You can even measure the temperature of your own body. How do you measure the temperature of your own body? What does your mom put in your mouth? Or like if you have little brothers and sisters, it goes under their armpit. A thermometer, right? And it goes beep, 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 beep. Or maybe it goes in your ear at school. Or maybe you even have one that goes across your forehead, those really fancy ones. That's measuring the temperature of your body. Part of weather is the air's temperature. The sun causes air temperature on Earth to change. The sun causes the air temperature on Earth to change. The Earth's surface is heated by the sun. The sun's energy heats the ground, and the ground warms the air above it. Because you know, you've walked on your driveway in the summer when it's baking hot, and what do your little tootsies feel like? Right? So you know that the sun heats the ground. And if it's a black ground, like perhaps a driveway, it gets even hotter than, let's say, something that isn't quite as dark, because the darkness absorbs more heat. Okay, the air is also heated a little bit directly by the sun. The sun heats Earth more in some places than others. This causes some places to be warm and other places to be cold. Air temperature changes daily, hourly, and if you live in Michigan, even from minute to minute. Have you ever, maybe it's just like right now, this time of year, it's just barely warm enough to have short sleeves or shorts. And when the sun is out, it's great. But the minute the sun goes behind a cloud, you're like, brr. Or maybe there's a breeze that comes through. I remember that would happen a lot at recess. And Mr. Wilson and I would say, boy, it would be nice out here if it just wasn't for that wind. And it can change from minute to minute. All right, page 146. Measuring temperature. You check the weather report. What does the temperature tell you about the weather? What does the temperature tell you? If the temperature is 30 degrees, what could the weather be? 30 degrees. Could be snowing. If the temperature is 100 degrees, go. If the temperature is 100 degrees, it's most likely sunny and nice out.
Snowy.
Okay. Could be raining though.
Snowy.
A thermometer is a tool that measures temperature. There are different ways to say what temperature is. Go. There are different ways to say what the temperature is, called temperature scales. In the United States, most weather reports use Fahrenheit or degrees Fahrenheit. In other parts of the world, Celsius or degrees Celsius is used. Boys and girls, you can think of that like we use inches, but England uses the metric system. So instead of inches, they might say centimeters. Okay, remember we've talked about that, where we use miles and the metric system uses meters. Okay, same thing. You're measuring, in that case, you're measuring distance, but you're measuring it with different units. For weather, you could measure with the unit of Fahrenheit or the measure, well, you're measuring in degrees, but Fahrenheit or Celsius. We use Fahrenheit consistently, but Celsius could be used, okay? Both scales measure the same temperature, but they use different numbers. For example, temperature at which water freezes is called 0 degrees Celsius, but it's also called 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that means is 0 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Fahrenheit are equal, right? Because if both of them are that point where water freezes, then they're equal. They're the same temperature. The temperature at which water boils in Celsius is 100 degrees, okay? But in Fahrenheit, it's 212 degrees. It's not that it's hotter, it's that it's a different unit of measure, okay? So, of course, we would never do this, but if you put your finger in it, it would be just as hot, right? Or when the water is freezing, it would be just as cold. It's just a different unit of measure, okay? So 100 degrees Celsius and 212 degrees Fahrenheit are the same temperature. They are equal. You have to say which scale you're using, otherwise people will not know what the temperature means. Kinds of thermometers. There are different kinds of thermometers. I'm at the top of 147. A bulb thermometer has a clear tube filled with liquid. When the liquid warms up, it takes up more space and it rises. A spring thermometer works in a similar way. Instead of using liquid, it has a metal part inside that gets larger and smaller. These changes move the pointer. The pointer shows the temperature. So boys and girls, if you look at that round thermometer on the left, that's called a spring thermometer, okay? And as it heats, it moves the dial, okay? So as it gets warmer, that dial is gonna go down, down, down towards, let's say, the 100 if it's really warm, okay? If it's not really warm, perhaps it's even gonna go like this, and you're gonna be at the 0 or even below 0 if it's the middle of winter, okay? Ways thermometers are helpful. Thermometers show how hot or cold something is. They help you plan. If a thermometer reads 13 degrees Celsius, that's the one that we don't use. Look at the parentheses though. That shows the one we do use. That means 55 degrees Fahrenheit. 55 degrees is a little warmer than it was today. Yesterday. So it's chilly, but it's not bad. You could just wear a jacket. If a thermometer reads 13 degrees Celsius or 55 degrees Fahrenheit, the air feels cool. You may need a jacket. A thermometer is one of the tools in a weather station. Weather stations have equipment that measure the temperature and other weather-related information. They normally measure it many times a day. So boys and girls, yesterday was very windy, okay? So a weather station may have recorded the speed of the wind, okay? Because it was very, very windy, and they may have wanted to know what the strongest gusts of wind measured, so the weather station may be measuring the wind. Okay, and it would be doing it constantly because the wind in one moment may be nothing, and in the next moment it may be enough to knock down a power line, and people might want to know, gosh, how strong was that wind? And so it measures every couple minutes, okay? They normally measure many times a day. The measurements can reveal patterns used to predict weather. We were just talking about predicting motion in our last forces test. Now we're trying to predict weather. We're trying to see a consistent pattern over time that helps us make an educated guess as to what it could be today. Okay? This information is sent to newspapers, television stations, and the internet. Okay, turn to page 148. Temperature patterns. Temperatures are higher during the day and cold and lower at night. During the day, the sun's energy heats the Earth's surface. Does this sound familiar? Maybe it's number 4. Temperatures are higher during the day and lower at night. And why is that? Because during the day, the sun's energy heats the Earth's surface. This includes rocks, roads, buildings, and even lakes and oceans. The Earth's surface heats the air above it. Each night when the sun sets, the Earth's surface stops being heated. Imagine you had like a heat lamp and you turn off the lamp. Well, no more heat going down, right? Imagine you have your furnace on in your house and you turn off the furnace. It's going to cool down. Remember in our classroom how hot it would get, and then it would get cold. And so we turn the heater back on and it'd get hot, and then we turn the heater off and it'd get cold, okay? So that's pretty obvious to us, right? Earth's surface heats the air above it. Each night when the sun sets, the Earth's surface stops being heated. The air cools down. Each day and night, this pattern of warm and cold temperatures repeats. Okay, so that's a predictable pattern of weather. Remember that science question? The question was, what is a predictable pattern of motion? This is a predictable pattern of weather. The daytime is going to be warmer, the nighttime is going to be cooler. And why? Because the sun is heating the earth. It's not even so much the sun is heating the air. It is a little, but it's more that it's heating the ground. So the sun beats down on the ground absorbs the sun and then warms the air. Okay? Seasons also have patterns of warmer and cooler temperatures. There are 4 seasons. Summer has the warmest temperatures. Fall, the temperatures begin to cool. The air is coldest during the winter. In spring, the air gets warmer again. The pattern repeats. Temperature patterns are different in different places. Florida has a pattern of mild winters, while Maine has a pattern of very cold winters. And you know what's really interesting, boys and girls? That second to last sentence says temperature patterns are different in different places. I've always thought this was so neat. When we're having winter time, which we're just coming out of, if we're having winter, the people in Australia are having summer. And during our summer is their colder winter season. So literally different places in the world have different patterns, and some are completely opposite of ours, okay? Now, the other side of that is the closer you get to the equator, there's really going to be no time that Florida has an extended period of like snowy weather, okay? So it's a lot closer to the equator. So even though it's cooler in the winter, Christmas time, let's say, it's still not nearly as cold as it is for us. But if you think about our friend to the north, you know, New France, you'll have to tell mom and dad what that's our little 3rd grade joke. New France is even further away from the equator than Michigan is. So their winters are significantly worse than our winters. So you go all the way from New France, Michigan, Florida, way down there, okay? And the difference is predictable, but even though it's winter for all of us, it's a lot worse up here, middle here, and a lot nicer down here, okay? Okay, boys and girls, will you grab this and start working on this? And if you have it done before Zoom and you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you at Zoom, okay?